Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Conscious Body Conversations. I am your host, Jessie Lucas of Embodied Movement Training, and I have a treat for you today. My friend Karen Bayard of Whole Body Laughter is here with us today, and we have a joyful topic coming at you. But to kind of seed all of this, if you've been following along, a couple of things. One, if you know my approach, my lens, my view of embodiment is all about, kind of what's in the way, what filters do we have to go through, what's all the gunk that is really keeping us from sensing ourselves and therefore really living truly as ourselves. And when I was thinking about that, especially in the context of, if you're watching this in real time, we're recording just over halfway through 2021. We've been through quite a year and a half here on this planet, and there's a lot of gunk. And the other piece I wanted to add to that, I chose at the beginning of the year, my word of the year this year is fun, because I realized I'm really, really good at doing intense things, gritty things, even dark things. In the work that I do, I help people work through the dark stuff in their systems. And I realized in doing so, in some of the dark stuff that I've been through in my own life, I wasn't prioritizing fun. And as I was getting older, that piece of my life was getting smaller and smaller. And I decided no more. And so it's been quite a journey. And so Karen, it was a decade ago, over a decade ago.
Yeah, it's been a decade.
We went to the same school. It was a graduate school, and it was a really cool progressive educational place where you could kind of really bring what moved you to the table and explore that in a way that you could bring it forward more in your own life, personally and professionally. And Karen is such a great example of that. She has a background in both laughter yoga and in comedy, and is bringing all of that together and more in her work in whole body laughter. And that's what I want you to speak on today is what is whole body laughter? What is joy, especially when we are in kind of adverse times, when there are all of these other forces maybe against us? And what are some of, one of my favorite terms is sparkles of joy. What are your sparkles of joy? And anyway, Karen, you are much more delightful to hear from. So I'm going to zip my lips and let you take it away. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jessie, for having me here. I'm really glad to be here with all of you. It has been a decade, and so much has happened since then, and especially in this last year and a half, as you said. And this definitely has been a trying time in different ways for different people. Some people face money issues, some people face joblessness or challenges with their homes, or some people just maybe didn't have the same bumps as other people, but there was so much happening externally in our country and in the world, the whole globe beyond us, that people really have felt a strain or an emotional or an energetic burden that is, I would say, unprecedented for our generation, and arguably in many generations before. The culmination of all the things that have happened at once, I don't know that we've ever seen this before. And so people have asked, like, how do you stay joyful in this time? And first of all, one of the questions I get a lot is, so when you're talking about joy and play, you're just trying to be happy all the time? And the answer is definitely no. That is not the goal. It's never been the goal. These practices that I've put together are designed for us to feel well. Well meaning balanced, well meaning grounded, well meaning joyful, well meaning able to navigate what comes up in life, because there are awesome things and there are trying things. And so what I find is, and this may be true, what people could say, this is true of all things we practice, but the thing that you practice on a regular basis is the thing that helps you kind of have this sort of foundation of where you're functioning from at all times, and where to come back to at times of confusion or loss or just feeling unsure of where you are, where you're going. So these exercises and games and things that I've created are meant to help people embody joyfulness, but also return to joyfulness when we're not there. And so during this particular time, I'm going to be honest and say in 2020, I struggled a lot. I have a lot of tools, and many people have some solid tools. You've got your family or whatever, whoever you rely on in throughout your life. And it was like 4 people jumped in in a canoe that you were rowing in at once. And before that moment, you were comfortably riding with one person, like looking at the scenery and enjoying the lovely day. And you're like, this is so nice out here. I love it. This is, wow, I'm so glad we're here. Like 4 people jump in out of nowhere and the whole thing's rocking and you're not sure if you're going to tip. And that felt unnerving. So it took some time to kind of recalibrate. And what I'll say is, it is important, maybe now more than ever, to focus on all of to give voice to all of the feelings that show up. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be sad about what to feel a sense of loss over what isn't anymore, what you are afraid may not come, to feel angry. And because I feel like when we feel the feelings, we let them move through us. And when we pretend that they're not there, or we're like, no, I've been feeling this too long, I need to just stop thinking about that now, then it kind of just is like this hairy monster that's like, all right, I need you to pay attention to me. You're not paying attention to me, And so it kind of just grows like toothier and hairier. And by the time it shows up, you're like overwhelmed by it, and you often feel surprised by it. So I would even say that playing with all the feelings is great. Because when we feel good, we're like high-fiving folks. We're like, yes, I've got this. I'm that girl, and all that stuff. And it's easier to be in that place. And I know for some people, because you mentioned this earlier, we focus on getting things done and being productive. And so play and fun are like on the list. They're often on the list. They're just down here on the list. Eat your dinner first and you can have dessert. Do your homework, then you can go outside and play. Do 600,000 hours of work and then take 1 week vacation. So one of the things that I noticed is that we have a cultural norm that we do we have these things where our parents tell us, do our homework first, then you can go outside and play. Eat your main part of your dinner and then you can have dessert. And as we grow older, then the thing is, we do all these hours of work, we work hard, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, and then you get 1 or 2 weeks off for vacation. And you're supposed to get all your joy into like that 1 or 2 weeks after probably like tens of thousands, if not just hundreds of thousands of hours of work. So this idea that play is on the menu, but it's way, 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 way down. And what I found over the years when I've worked with people that are facing terminal illness, and people who have survived some really tragic circumstances and experiences, that what they thought about wasn't those hundreds or tens of thousands of hours of work. It wasn't, all of the things that made them productive. It was the Sunday dinners. It was Thanksgiving. It was like Super Bowl for those who liked sports or things like that. It was the events in their lives that made them feel great big love, or the way somebody laughed, or the way someone smelled, or it's really about the feeling of life, not the details of the practicality of productivity. And so what I try to invite people to do is to kind of mix and blend them. Because I don't know that, I'm not going to tell people like, okay, so you haven't played in like 6 years. You need to do that like 10 hours every day now for 5 weeks straight. I feel like that is calling for some kind of your body to rebalance that some other way. So I would say, like sometimes when I'm angry, I'll dance, because dancing is a really great way for me to be in my body and to feel a lot of feelings without necessarily having to manage how they show up, when they show up, and how they move. Because as I move, it's almost like if you have like a really delicious glass of, let's say water for now, and it's got like some cucumbers and some mint and some fruit and some whatever, and you leave it and everything kind of settles wherever, but at some point when you're ready to take a sip, like you'll stir it and it all kind of mixes and all the flavors kind of come through, and then you take a sip and it's all everything it needs to be in that moment. I feel like when I'm moving, and I choose dance, it can be running, it can be trampoline, jumping, whatever the thing is that you're drawn to, moving the body in a way that allows the movement to move what's inside. And then I often find that after I dance, because sometimes I'll dance slow, or sometimes I'm like, and my dancing might mimic the anger that I feel. That doesn't have to be. It just move however you want. And then when I'm done, often I'll sit still. And it's interesting to me that almost all the time that I do that, there's, whether it's a clarity that comes through or just simply a calm that I feel, that whole like, oh my God, what about this? What about that? I don't know if I can do this, but last time, but next time, but what, all of that kind of just find this right place in that stirred glass of fruity, minty stuff, And I like that. I liked that it wasn't this ginormous process and 10 hours later and I could just smoke all in my eyes and my hair and and I do a lot of different kinds of rituals as well, but sometimes we need the processes to be easeful and simple. I really like, and I also feel like when times are so, like you feel like, wow, there's so much. Like I want the answer to be like, Karen, just here. I really believe that we know what we need. We know who we are. And when we feel confused, it's because there's too much movement, like too much, not movement in a like I'm trying to ground kind of way, but too much stirred up in a way that is often too external. Like there's not enough internal stillness. And some people are like, well, I can't meditate. I can't sit still for 5 minutes. Like, I encourage people to find ways to play, to move your body, whether that is as simple as if you have pets. Like sometimes when the dog, like I have dogs, some of these dogs as an example, like the dogs get up and I would say almost every time they do that dual stretch. They stretch their front legs out, then they do their back legs and they kind of drag their feet or their nails across the ground. And then they stop and they go shake, 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 And one day I was like, I'm gonna start doing that when I see them do it. And so I would just stand and raise my hands with my head and stretch, and then like stretch my legs out in front of me, or like stand on my tippy toes if I'm standing. And then when I was done, I would just shake my entire body. And it's not like, oh, look, miracles, but it just reminds you to like shake things off, just in that moment. And it's free. And if you're paying attention to the animals, like it's right there as an example. There are also, I feel like we get cues and we miss them sometimes. Like for the people that have kids, sometimes they're like, let's do this thing. Like you're at the park, enjoying the afternoon or walking your dogs or just having a picnic, whatever. And there's a hill and the kids are like, let's roll down the hill. And, most parents will be like, all right, just be careful and go ahead. And I'm like, go do it too. Go out there and run. You're like, no, no, no. Why no? Why can't you do it? Was your outfit might get dirty? Wash it. What else? Like you might hurt yourself. Your kids might hurt themselves. You let them go. Like let yourself be in the moments that are right there in front of you that you don't have to figure out. All you have to do is just pay attention because they're always there. You're at the park and the kid's like, oh, a swing. Can I get on it? And you're like, sure. And then you stand there watching them and you're like, I love watching my kids have a good time. And I'm always fascinated at how many parents just stand there and watch their kids have fun. I'm like, get on the swing. Like, get on some things like you might try to get on the slide and maybe you can't fit. That's different, right? But the swing we can do, I feel like all of these little stolen moments can be so precious. People talk about road rage, and you're trying to get somewhere and there are too many lights, or someone's driving slower, they've cut you off, and so there's these little moments where we have these blow ups. And I've been like, what if when you're at this, because often many of us will listen to music in the car. So what if you're listening to, and there's that song and you're like, oh, I love this song. And you're like singing the words, whether you know them or not, you're just working your way through the song. And you get up to a stoplight and then maybe you kind of stop doing it a little because everybody's like right there parked next to you at the red light, you know? And so you're like, and you're kind of bobbing. Why? Like wind the window down and let it rip, you know? Or wave at them and just like sing to them and stuff, you know? Why can't you do that? You're like, oh no, that's crazy. Is that any more crazy than road rage? Like road rage is purposeless. It doesn't get you anywhere faster. When you get there, you're frazzled. You're not necessarily paying more attention to the road and the world around you in that moment. And it just doesn't feel good. So how is that helpful? But people are naturally just jump into that, some people, and people are like, yeah, that happens. And we accept that as part of life. But if I suggest singing or, you know, move dancing, like car dancing and like bringing people in with you, or not, just even if you just let yourself do it fully, what about that? That's weird. That's not weird. It's better because it feels good in the moment. The people next to you are gonna be like, look at that lady. That lady is killing it over there. She cannot dance, but she does look happy. You know what I mean? Like whatever they think, they're at least smiling. Even if they're laughing and you think they're laughing at you, you've made somebody laugh just in that moment, you know? Also, people ask about whole body laughter and what exactly does that mean? And I coined that phrase. I'm not sure that I coined that phrase, but I use that phrase because it reminds me of my family. My family is from the Caribbean, and when we get together, it's a lot of food. We play bingo, domino. Well, I should say we. The men in the family would play bingo, dominoes, or we call it domino. We don't have an S on it. I don't know why that is, but that's how it goes. And the kids would be like running around and this and that. And wherever you are in the house or wherever, you know, whether we're outside at a big park, you hear like this big uproarious laughter. Like we're laughing, we're talking, we're eating, we're jumping around, we're playing games, and there's always music. And at least one person is there, like somebody's always dancing, if not all of us. And there's just this movement that's so joyful that it includes the best of conversations, the most difficult of talks sometimes, because sometimes in the hours of the party, it could be like midnight or 1 a.m. At some point, like some of the parents have squirreled away into a room that has a locked door. Like, what are they doing behind the locked door? And as we got older, we realized they were having lots of talks about, you know, their marital stuff, or somebody might be getting a divorce, or somebody's having something with their kid and they're all kind of helping each other work through it. And it was grown folk talk, so we weren't allowed in there in that moment. So even in the midst of a party, like as a community, we're still helping each other. So there's something about how like there's so many parts of the body and mind and soul that are fed in that event that feel joyful and remind me of like what I hear is the laughter. But when I think of each of those elements that I mentioned and the ones that I haven't, I think, gosh, like your whole body is fed, like literally and figuratively. And how can we move through life in that way? Where even though it's a party, it's not everything is fun. Like we worked hard to make food. You know, there was a lot of cleanup at the end. There were talks about difficulties in life. So it points to all the things that can happen in life: hard work, cleaning up messes, navigating difficulty, loving, laughing, eating well, playing, being together, like being rambunctious and wild, being still and just looking around and enjoying what everybody's doing. And I felt like that was really like, I wanted to capture that in my work. And so I talk about all kinds of things about eating food that feels good. I don't love the term comfort food has gotten like a bad rap, you know, but I think that food can be comforting. I feel like the idea of looking to food to resolve an issue is not healthy, and it's a challenge that I've been working through in my life. But the idea of nourishing the body as a comforting act, fueling this body to do life, to be in joy. And you can't really say that you're joyful if like your digestive system's like, oh Lord Jesus, oh gosh, can't do it, you know? And like if your body hurts when you climb stairs, and you know what I mean? So if we're not finding our own unique ways to take care of our bodies, then we can't fully experience and express all that it wants to do. you know? So food is an element, movement is an element, spirituality or whatever kind of religious, universal practice you belong to. I like that element involved in this practice because I do not subscribe to a particular religion necessarily. And so everybody chooses what they want or not. But at the same time, there is something to be said for feeling held by something, someone, or community that is greater than one. Because the challenges and the things that come up in life is a lot for any one person. And if you're responsible on any level for anyone else, whether that be children or your aging parents, like then you're sort of responsible for like 1.5, 2 lives or more, depending on how many people you're a caregiver for. And it is a lot and arguably too much for any one person to be like, I got this. All of this, it's a lot, you know? And whenever the ball gets dropped, if ever it gets dropped, often it's yourself. You don't drop the ball for your kids. You're not like, hey, I'm not gonna take care of them today. You're not gonna be like, my mom will be fine in that, I'll just put her in a home. And that's okay if that's where your mom ends up. I'm just saying somewhere along the line, if the ball gets dropped, we often drop it on ourselves. And thinking that somehow we'll have enough oomph to do all the things we want to do magnificently in this world. And that is, we all will come to find out if you do it long enough that is not true. So when we talk about joyfulness, it is so many things. There's so many different ways. I love to see it. If I'm visualizing like what I feel like joy is, it is either like a room with confetti falling, because I love that it's moving, like it flips and it does this. And also it's lots of different colors and a lot of different, like a rain of lovely, colorful, vibrant things at once. Or a bunch of balloons in a room, like a room filled with balloons. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Patch Adams, and he walks into this room and the woman's in the room and he like goes and tells her like, I think he says, I love you, or whatever it is, like they end up dating or whatever it is. And I was like, I would love to walk into a room of balloons, and so that's what it feels like, just this fullness of something that reminds you of play, that reminds you of something as a kid that you're like, balloons, and so I like that idea for the metaphor of how this work is meant to feel. And yeah, and even interestingly enough, in both of those examples, there is work, whether it is the blowing up of however many balloons it requires to fill an entire room, or the cleanup of 5 gazillion small sharp little pieces of paper on the floor. Once you're like, hooray, that was amazing. Who's gonna clean all of this up? So I just feel like it's important for us to look for or be open to being aware of what's juicy, what's fun, what makes you smile, what makes you kind of just, sometimes it's a giddy, like, oh, you're so excited kind of smile. And sometimes it's just like the kind of smile that makes you want to lean back in your chair and be like, yeah, that's it. I love that thing. And let yourself be in that moment for how many seconds or minutes you can. I think rest is also an important element of being well and being joyful. It's hard to be joyful when we're tired or when we're exhausted and when we're overwhelmed. And people are like, well, I can't take a nap in the middle of the day, or I can't sleep. It doesn't have to be hard. Just sit down and put your feet up, or lie down and put your feet on the wall and let them be above your head. Like, it's so funny. There's so many things that kids do that are so helpful all throughout life. When a kid's lying on their belly and they're reading a book and their legs like swinging behind them like this, like do that. Lie and you lie down and like I said, your feet are up on the wall. That's actually really a great thing for blood flow. When people start doing like research, they're like, oh, that's so helpful. I do that in yoga. Yeah, your kids were doing it when they were like 4. You know what I mean? And if you have them around, you've probably seen them do it. So do that. Like you could get down there and be like, what are you doing? See how they're doing, like be in their physical space. However, if you physically can, if you're physically able to do it, try. So I think life offers us a lot of opportunities. Life in its essence offers us a lot of opportunities to smile and laugh and dance and be mesmerized by weather. And I know that weather is doing a lot of weird things now with all that's happening in the world, but I'm talking about you're out and you're moving and it's a hot day, but there's a breeze and it's just enough of a breeze that you're like, it's relief, there's a relief from it. And in that moment, you think, God, I'm so grateful for this breeze. It's so nice. Be in that moment, like the breeze is nice. I love this breeze.
I have to jump in here. When you were describing the confetti and the room of balloons, I had this flash memory. Just last week, I was on the coast of Massachusetts, up in Cape Cod. The first time I've ever been there, and I'm a coastal girl. I love the ocean. And going back to my intro, like I decided this year I'm going to have more fun, and so it means I'm saying yes to more experiences. So is hilarious. I swear I travel around with a dark cloud over my head. When I go somewhere, it's like rainy and horrible weather and whatever. So, and I was like, I need sun and the beach, and I go there and it's pouring rain, right? So we decide we're gonna go out on this walk anyway, and it was this dunes trail, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a mile from the trailhead to the beach, no big deal. But they were dunes, like and like torrential downpour. And I get out there and I decided, you know what, nothing is going to steal my joy. I'm going to be in the moment here. And, it was a moment. It was just two grownups, no kids pulling on us, nothing else, it wasn't thunder and lightning. There wasn't danger. So I had all this, safety and freedom to just be like, all right, I'm in this moment. And we get out there, and the sensory experience of that weather, this is tying to what you just said about the weather. I swear that was the most potent hit of joy that I can remember in a long time. And the coolest thing is that was just an opening. So it's a hard 1 mile walk to get to the ocean. And we get to the ocean and there is not a single human out there. And all of a sudden I look up and there are seals in the ocean. And I'm like, holy crap, this is the most magical thing. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't go into it with a sense of saying yes, with a decision. I'm telling you, hard work to get to this decision of like, I am going, and man, like leading up to this trip, I mean, so many family things broke down, so many stresses on the table, so much, the packing, work, like you said, cleaning up the confetti, filling up the balloons. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. But it led to this moment of experiential joy. And I'm like, first of all, I gave myself a little pat on the back. Like I did this. Like I said, yes, I'm having fun. This is awesome. But it makes me think to something you said in the beginning. And also thank you for being vulnerable and saying, like you who embodies this whole body laughter. You shared your cultural family story of like where this is all coming from. It's in you, that you had a hard year. So thank you for being vulnerable with that too, and letting us know that that's normal to live with both difficulty and this inner essence that is still pulled to joy. It's a both and thing, not an either or thing. But it makes me wonder, and I have a question for you for this, if you could kind of tease on this, and then maybe we'll kind of wrap it around. I think back to a lot of the things those filters I was talking about in the beginning, and in my own experience, it had to do with some trauma experiences I had as a young adult and as a new mom, responsibilities as a woman and as a single mom. All of these things and from what I've learned about the brain, these switches, like when our responsibility switches are on, our fun switches can get turned off. Thinking about watching my kids at the playground, why I was that mom that stood there and watched. And partially because I know my brain was just on a constant ticker of what do I have to do next? How, the survival things that, where's the income coming from? Where, what is the food going to get on the table? What do I have to do to care for my shelter, my house over my head? I mean, not a superfluous to-do list, the survival to-do list. And that was a chapter in my life when there was no turning the volume down on that. And so there was, and I look at that over time, how that really started to filter out my capacity to just, quote unquote, just let go, in the moment, just roll down the hill, just get on the swing, and thank goodness I had my body practices, because I look back and I am so grateful, because when you were talking about that dancing, and sometimes if you can just, even for a split second, find a crack in your mental to-do list, even if it is the survival list, and move your body, that's what got me through. That's what gave me that sensation of like, okay, I at least have the freedom to move my body. Thank goodness for that. And that gave me a sensation of aliveness. That gave me a sensation of breath moving in and out. And some days that's all I could do. But what would you say, in the work that you do, because I know you do work with people who are going through crap, in these hard moments, when it's not enough to just say, just get on the swing, because that every system in your body is going like, down a dark hole. Yes. And I think a lot of us, whether it's looking at what's happening environmentally, looking at what's happening culturally, looking at what's happening with our health and wellness going on, these big overwhelming things. I think there's so much overwhelm going on right now. I think we had it already before 2020. And then now it's just all kind of compressed and compounded. So I know this is kind of like taking it from like the balloons and the confetti to like, this is a hard thing, but I think this is where your work can be the most meaningful and most helpful. So can you kind of bring us home with, how do we tip that scale when we are consumed by overwhelm, but we know somewhere in there is this spark of joy that we really do want to entertain. Give us your wisdom.
So yeah, I know what you mean. The overwhelm and it's a lot. It is so much. And whether it's, for the people that are listening now and in the near future, this may be relevant to this, this era that we're in. And for people that will listen beyond this time, this will still apply for whatever difficult times may show up. And one of the, and I say this, I don't say this lightly, the answers that we need are often right here. The issue is that we're so full that we can't even see something that's right in front of us. So some of the really beneficial things is if you don't have one, build yourself a tribe of people that are like really for you, and they're good at reminding you of who you are and what you're capable of. So that if you're a person who needs to call someone, you've got someone to be like, I can't do this. And they're like, girl, you can do this. You know how I know you can do this? And they may tell you all the other times you did stuff. Because at the end of the day, if you're standing in the middle of that storm, you've made it through every other storm before it. All the other times you thought you couldn't. All the other times you thought you wouldn't. And you're here now. There's a reason you're here now. And there's a way you got here now. And that you are your own proof. I am my own proof that I am able and capable of navigating anything, everything life puts in my path. I didn't do it alone. So can I try to remember, how did I do it before? Did I borrow money? Did I ask someone for help? Did I just tell me what's great about me? I forgot. How did I do it last time? So if you can do that for yourself, great. If you need someone to tell you, then build your life with people who can do that for you. One of the things I did a few years ago, and I still have this book, it's a little journal. And I got, I'm gonna probably date myself, but back in the day we used to put like book covers on books. And you're like, oh, you're so excited to get like whatever kind of book cover because you really love strawberry shortcake or whatever it is, and I should stop talking because I'm probably gonna date myself. So you know what I'm talking about, right? So I put a cover on this little journal, and it's all sparkly and cool. Just the paper drew to me. I was drawn to the paper, and inside I made myself a list of all the things I've overcome. I didn't write how I did it. It's a short list. It is just, I did this, I did that, and it didn't matter if people helped me or not. I didn't make it complicated. I just wrote what it was. So on days where I'm like, I cannot do this, I just look at that page. And because if I ask you in the moment to tell me, you're gonna be like, I don't know. I can't think of anything. You know what I mean? But if you've already written it and you look at it and be like, what? Come on. Like, that's me. And yes, you might have had help, but there are people who get offered help and don't take it. There are people who never ask for help. There are people who never get past anything. Not never, but sometimes, have trouble getting past things. So it doesn't matter how you accomplish it. It is true that you did, right? So make a list of those things for yourself in a moment where you're not like, even if it's a nanosecond that you're not completely overwhelmed, like write it down. And another time you think of something, write it down. If you think you can't remember, call 5 people that really matter to you and ask them to tell you the most amazing things you've ever accomplished, and then write them down, because it's still you just couldn't remember for yourself. So that way you keep this list for yourself, try and build the tribe that you have. And then remember, I often say, remember animals, remember children. There's a lot of information in that. When a child is freaking out and they're like, their whole world is falling apart, and it could be over a peanut butter sandwich, and you're like, as an adult, a peanut butter sandwich not being made properly is not the end of the world, but to them it is. What do? You stop, you get down on their level, you speak more slowly, you drop the tone in your voice, you look them directly in the eye, maybe you hold them and you tell them what? Everything is going to be okay. I'm with you. And we're going to figure this out. Okay? You're not alone. Do you need something? What can I do? Do you want a different sandwich? Do you want something else? Because clearly what you have is upsetting you. What do you want instead? And sometimes they're like, I don't, they can't even tell you. And sometimes we feel like that as adults. Like, what do you want? What would make you happy? So many people are like, I don't know. But if you know what's making you not happy, at the very least, try your best to steer away from that, even if you don't know what you're steering toward. And if you have any inkling of what brings you joy, do the heck out of that. Even if it's only for 5 seconds. Like, I can't think of anything, Karen. All right, let me just give you a minute. What kinds of things do you like? Like when I talked about the book, I said glittery, sparkly. I'm not a person that does a lot of glittery, sparkly things. I like colorful, but glittery is not necessarily my thing. But if that's what I mentioned in the moment, there's a reason it showed up. I don't have to examine it and make it hard. Just even if I don't have like a crazy pen with glittery stuff and can go draw something glittery, I can just sit in the moment and just think of the whatever thing embodies or is an example of that. Just let yourself for a second be like, I love colorful things and I love mosaics. So maybe I'm thinking of, like, as a kid, I used to look through the kaleidoscope and all of the colors would do like this. And so for a second, I just think that. And I'm like, that used to be fun. I like that. I really feel like that doesn't change the whole world, but it stops the snowballing. And I think the overwhelm happens because there are too many things on the plate at once. And then you want some more? You want some more? You want some more? It's like a buffet. You go to the buffet, you put everything on the buffet on your plate, stuff is going to fall off the plate. You have to let some things come off, or don't put that many, or stop and go back. Like, I promise you, like, there's so many metaphors. Like, don't fill your plate. Just eat that part and enjoy it. And if you want more, go back. But we don't live like that. We live walking, putting everything on the buffet on the plate, and wonder why we're like, I can't carry it. The meatball is on the floor now. And then you feel shame because your plate's too full and you're making a mess of the people's floor. And now something that wasn't even a problem is a problem. And you're like, what do I do? And by the time you sit down, you don't even want all the food on the plate and you know how to navigate eating it. It seems so silly to use a buffet as an example, a buffet plate of food. But I feel like that's what we do in our lives. So what will help us? Pausing for however long that we can. Having people around that really can support us. Not the people we're supposed to have because they're your family and you need to know. If they're not your people, they can be in your life, but they're not the people you call. Write yourself your like, I'm awesome list. Here's what I've knocked out in the park in this world. So when you can't remember yourself or you call a friend and they're not home or they can't talk to you right now, pull out your book, pull out your little list and be like, look at me. Yeah, 2005, 1985. Oh, wow, I was a badass back then, because we forget. And I promise you, if we're standing here now, we've got what it takes to be okay in this world. We do. So.
Thank you so much. You just reminded me, if we're kind of like bringing this into, what I was hearing in you is like ways to embody joy.
Yes.
Even amongst the overwhelm that within us, we are still wired to be able to have these uplifted experiences, these pleasure experiences. And it reminds me of a practice that really helped me kind of shift my gears and even be able to go into 2021 saying my word of the year is fun. It's a somatic experiencing practice called orienting to pleasure. And that's what I would do, even just, sitting in my own, because I think of like, okay, well, what brings me joy? I love being at the ocean, but I live in New York and I can't stop, drop, and get to the ocean in 5 seconds, but I can take a moment and look around and be like, oh, the way the light is coming through the window. That is serving me some pleasure right there, and just linger on that for 5 seconds and then like go to another thing, like my colored pens over there. I love my colored pens. I don't know why it's so simple, but I love my colored pens, and linger on that and just do a couple of those little hits. And I think, it's like what you said in the beginning, you said something around like practicing this, when things are hard, to just remember, practice this, returning to the place in you where joy can spring from. There is so much more I know to all of this. And that is why this is whole body laughter, because there is so much goodness, so much richness to this. Where can people find you, follow you, so they can keep learning from your wisdom?
My website is wholebodylaughter.com, and whole is in whole, WHOLE, as opposed to HOLE. And I'm on Instagram at Whole Body Laughter. I'm on Facebook as Whole Body Laughter and as Karen Bayard. And then I'm on Twitter as Whole Body Laugh, because the TER couldn't all fit. So you can find me on all the social media outlets. I would say Instagram might be like the most fun place to find me if you're on Instagram. And I am looking forward to sharing more and more ways to be joyful, to navigate this time in ways that are fun and helpful and meaningful to people. And I really feel like in the all of the all, we're going to be more than fine. And whatever we can do to help each other navigate, not just this time, but all time, really will make it a more pleasurable, or at the very least, I guess, tolerable situation. And I really feel generally optimistic. I know there are so many things, but as many things that are wrong, there are many things that are right. And I think we need to balance that outlook so we don't fall into everything's going to fall apart, because the world will be fine in some way, and we all have to do our own little parts to help that. So we gather together, we make moves to make the world better. We take breaks when we need them. We help each other out as much as we can. We try to uplift each other as often as we can. And as a whole, like universal global team, we will be on the better end of this eventually. So
I agree. Oh my goodness, Karen, thank you so much. Thank you for being one of the people I can call and say, hey, I gotta have this difficult conversation about joy in adverse times. Can you jam with me? And you were like, I'm there. When are we doing it? So thank you for being in my corner. I am in yours, as you know. And thank you for sharing your stories and your all this good good stuff with us. Everybody, I hope you got something out of this. I will share Karen's contact information and all of those links in the show notes here. And this is it, you guys. I fully agree. You know, we are on this turning point to better times, and it's up to all of us to peel through these filters, to be there for each other, to gather together, even if it's virtually or socially distant as it is in these times, but to not lose touch with each other, to hold each other's hearts so that we can lean in and turn down those switches a little bit that allow us just that little bit more freedom to embody joy. So thank you so much for being in the conversation and along the journey. And you can find me at embodiedmovementtraining.com and tune into the next episode. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Jessie.